Race first, 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 race first. I'm screaming race first, brothers form a coalition. Protectors and providers, earn your belt in position. Until my sisters out there, you're not my competition. Our enemy, one is divided as opposition. I'm taking care of home first. The melanin the creator blessed us with has value in its own worth. The most beautiful resources are black women. So when you disrespect them, yes, I get offended. We need to give our children knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and reparations for slavery. We are demanding. Look to the future, begin a positive outcome. Forget being niggas, we need to raise more Malcolms. Encourage our women that the beauty is natural. The bond between the brother and sister is compatible. I am race first, cause I love being black with the original man, and that's an actual fact. Race first, 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 race first. In the spirit of Marcus Garvey, one God, one aim, and one destiny. We're trying to live heavily. Power to the people that's meant for us especially. Support black businesses, utilize your specialty. I love my brothers and sisters, there's no confusion. You want equality on a ship is revolution. Look at our flag, let me explain what it means. In the essence of God, which is the supreme being. The red is for the blood of which our ancestors shed, for us to be free and also moving ahead. The black is for the skin we possess as melanin. As God's chosen people, just look at the evidence. The green is for the land in which our people reside. All over the planet, which includes our Kelbulan. I am race first, and there is no looking back. Because I love my people, and that's an actual fact. Race first, 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 race first. One God, one aim, one destiny, one love. 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 Race first, 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 race first.
Welcome to Race First Radio with the Garveyites. I'm Brother A to the J with Brother Anthony, Brother Abdullah, and Sister Tanaya.
Race First, Garveyites. I am your lead host for the evening. My name is Sister Tanaya, and our topic for today is minding our Black-owned business. This is part of a Black relationship series. I just want to say that we Garveyites, and we believe in the principles: one God, one aim, and one destiny. Africa for the Africans, those at home and those abroad. That being said, family, we have two special guests this evening from the Chicago area, two Garveyites that have epitomized a Black relationship, and we thought they would be good subject matter experts today. So we have some questions for some racialized questions to ask for when it comes to 21st century Black love and what that should look like. We have Brother Clyde Banks and Sister Georgia Johnson Banks here with us today. And we're going to take turns just asking them various questions. Brother Anthony, Brother Abdullah, Sister Precious, and Brother Austin, the questions are in a chat, so we're going to take turns asking questions. I'll start out with question number one, but I just want to give Brother Clyde and Sister Georgia an opportunity to say hello to the audience today.
Greetings, listening audience. I want to again thank you all for inviting us to be on the podcast. This second podcast. So, Sister Tanaya and Brother Jackson, we certainly appreciate this opportunity to expound on some of the things that we are doing and some of the things we're thinking about as Garveyites. We certainly look forward to the questions, and also we'd like to kind of put our own spin on a few things that we'd like to get out there as well.
Sure.
Well, you can just call me Miss Impromptu. I just got off work and I come in and my dear husband tells me we're going to be on a show tonight. So I'm here.
Communication. All right.
Yes, that's a constant struggle, is good communication.
That's how we roll.
Oh my goodness, Sister Georgia, Brother Clyde, we're just so glad that you're here. And we promise we won't keep you long, but we have some very interesting questions, some thought-provoking questions to ask. And we're just glad to have you as our guest for today. Again, we Garveyites, this is Black solution-based radio. So we're going to talk about solutions as well on this podcast today. Welcome, Sister Precious. Glad to have you, Queen, chiming in with us today as our wild card guest, Ashe. All right, so the topic for today is minding our Black-owned business, right? Minding our own business, the Black Relationship Series. First question we have today is, why should Black people mind their own business? Why? Why is that important? Either one of our guests can take that question.
I'll take the first crack at that. Specifically, we should be minding our own business because it puts us in a position to be like the spokes on a wheel, where we can kind of direct dollars to where they should be, as opposed to everybody spending money everywhere. As a business owner, you get to buy products from Black suppliers. If you're involved with the real estate and have an office or a store or what have you, you get to decide where you're going to be renting from, where you're going to be buying from. So again, another opportunity to put your Black dollars into another Black hand. Labor, materials, tools, peripheral services such as finance, accounting, and legal. Again, this just begins to perpetuate success throughout our community as a result of having your own Black-owned business.
Ooh, shame. And when we say Black-owned business, we're talking about the 360 degrees of Blackness when we say that, meaning our own relationships, minding the business of that, our own finances, minding the business of that, our parenting, minding the business of that, our neighborhoods, the industries and institutions that we build. We're talking about 360 degrees of Blackness. Sister Georgia, why should Black people mind their own Black business?
Well, first of all, if you don't mind your own Black business, somebody else will. I think about legacy as well. I'm thinking about a family that's in the Garveyite circle who I was going through my phone, and then they were advertising some of their products, and brother Joshua. And so I was going through it and I said, gee, these are some items that I need. So rather than going out to the store to get them, plus they're going to deliver it. So I immediately responded that I'm getting my list together. So when they deliver it, I mean, you can't be better than that. And then, of course, he was passing that legacy on to the children. So they learn how to mind your own Black business, as it were. So I think it's just like you said, it's more than just running the business. It's what it means to, as it expound out to the generations and to the community, that they see you with minding your business, and then that spreads off. Other people see it, and then so it just it just goes into a circle. And it goes throughout the family and friends. So it's a great thing to mind your own business, because if you don't, somebody else will.
Ashe, Queen. That question came about because as we was putting together this podcast, we was thinking about how often Black people are pulled into other people's business and helping solve other people's problems and other races' problems and other business problems, and so us being pulled out of our own households, to solve problems for others, we rarely get the chance to solve our own problems. So thank you so much for the question. Somebody want to take question number 2?
I'll take question number 2. To piggyback off what Sister Georgia said, do you think that Black relationships should be public? Social media, in the streets, things of that nature?
That's a good one, because as you know, it's out there. Especially in the younger generation, it is. I mean, it's on steroids. I'll put it that way. I have actually had to adjust some of my, shall I say, younger relatives, some of the things that they put out there about their relationships, as it were. So they, of course, need direction, though. I mean, it's out there. So the fact that I think we could, if we want to put the positive notes and the positive spins in a teaching way, to especially the younger generation, if we want to show Black love or the how-tos of the way you should treat each other and the different things like that, then it could work that way. But people putting on there, some of this stuff is just, it's really garbage, when you're talking about it. So that's not a good way. But I think it can be used if we do it in a positive way, very, very positive way, in an instructive way. So in that sense, I think we could do it. But putting all the dirty laundry and the, he say, he why did, he did, that kind of stuff. No. But in a positive way, if someone is saying I'll take you for instance, dear. Say you was doing something really nice for me, and you want to put it out there to the ether, to the brothers, I did this, and then you talked about how your wife responded, and you want to make a note about this is how I treat my queen, kind of thing,
I'm using this as a teaching moment, but I don't do that.
But we're saying,
if she wants to acknowledge what
if you want
was
to
done,
do
that's fine.
something like that. That's upscale. That's
right.
Playing to the intelligence of a mindset. And maybe some young brother is listening, saying, so we need help when it comes to relationships, and so that would be a good positive way to put a spin on it.
Mm-hmm. As a Garveyite, again, I agree with everything that Georgia said, is that we need to accentuate those positives and encourage ourselves. Think about one of our other ancestors, Johnny Johnson, with Ebony Jet Publications. You think about all of the types of articles that they had in Ebony and Jet. They all really accentuated the positives. There's enough on the other media that goes the opposite way. And what we need to do is to make sure that propaganda that we put out there will negate the other stuff that's being put out by other people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we have to balance the scales. Yes. A shame.
So to follow up on that, how will we go about getting rid of the negative things? Or how will we go about getting people to not expose their negative in their relationships?
I think we need to have more personalized discussions. And I think we probably all do that to an extent, and talk to people about some of their challenges that they have and that they're going through, and try to come up with some solutions that they can move past those challenges and overcome them. I don't think that is something that everybody wants to internalize, because someone else might be on the fence with respect to their lives, and that could take a turn for the worse. I mean, we've got people that are in different places in their hearts and minds, and if they're a little weak with respect to what they're supposed to be doing, and not looking at things properly, I think that can unfortunately encourage some of the worst behavior that we see out here.
Shame.
I would like for you to ask that question again, because I'm thinking about what you said, and I'm listening to Brother Clyde. Ask me that question again.
Okay, how do we, I guess you say, stop our people from giving out the negative images of relationships, making negative things public in their relationships?
You need to stop saying it like this, or stop doing this.
Oh, you got the answer.
So,
Say it, honey. He's reminding me of some pointers. But to stop it, I doubt that we can just maybe stop it immediately. But when we think about even in chemistry, when we think about negatives and positives, that. And it just seems, I don't know why it's like that, but it seems like negatives can have so much power. And it seems like for every positive, you got to have like 10, for every negative, you got to have like 10 positives to shoot that thing down. So it seems like we just have to just over positive things, it seems like, the way things are and the way they seem like they can get out of hand. So if something negative comes out, we have to attack that thing right away. And it has to be more than just me and you. This has got a T. I had a personal situation this week where I got a family text. That's a way to keep in touch. And it's just, the teenagers are on there, the old folks are on there, the kids. And so every now and then, everybody's joking and laughing and saying little things. And I think one of the teenagers said something like, we all say LOL, and they threw the A and F, AO in there and all this kind of stuff. And one of the young people that knows how I feel about certain limits, in that speech, especially when you got your elders on there, he said, "Now, wait a minute. Now, you all know we have our grandparents and our mothers, and he interjected that, and then I topped it off by saying, of course, because we have young people on here. This is a family show. I didn't want to hurt nobody's feelings, so I tried to make it up. But the point is, we jump right on that negative. So when we hear things, even with our fellow grown people. If somebody says something negative, there's a way to say it. Like, even with my hubby. Now, he says some things sometimes, and I'll say, "Now, honey, you could have said that differently. Now, you could." And then he'll turn around and say, "You're right." And then we'll say the same thing, but there's a way to do it. And then with some young people, we really got to work with them, because the way we approach them, it might not get through because they take it as an attack, and they put the the blinders up, and they don't want to hear. So, but there is a way to pull somebody to the side and say, "Listen, we could have done this way, or why don't we try it this way," and things like this. So it's just a matter of kind of adjusting the way we do things, because you can get your point across without being so negative all the time, or saying the words and things that's not necessarily needed to get the point across. So a lot of those things are needed. And so I've just try to do it wherever I find it, wherever I can. So in a collective way, as Garveyites, wherever we see that ugly head, we just have to tap people on the shoulder and say, "Let's try this and try that." So there's a way to do that. So we just have to work together.
I appreciate your response, Sister Georgia. That was really good. For every negative, we need 10 positives. I should.
No, yes, that's for sure.
I say. I think that the third question is similar to the second question. It's about, should Black relationships be open for public consumption anyway? Right? Should the public be able to consume our relationships anyway? And I think to a certain degree, you guys began to answer that by saying, it's okay as long as it's positive. But I guess we're talking about now, people constantly oversharing their relationship.
I certainly see your point. I think, though, we have to go back to the fact that, there's so much media in other cultures that are having an impact on our people. Mm-hmm. And we need to make sure that we're combating some of those negative images that, they got 20 so-called reality TV shows out there, and all kind of ratchet behavior going on. And to show somebody that, or a couple, or a employer-employee relationships that are not like that at all, but more normal, I would say, as opposed to way out in left field. They're showing people coming to blows over nothing. And so people start to think that that's normal. That's not normal behavior. We were out, had a great Black History program in Inglewood last week. And, at the end of the program, it was a beautiful night, three hours of programming, performers, everything. And then the two sisters got into it about somebody standing up and, I guess, blocking the view. We can't have fights get started over those sorts of things. We got to be able to reason with ourselves. And just showing a way to do that, I think, is going to be helpful. I've seen some of the production value that Brother Abdullah has put together with his videos. And I think if we could come up with a way to do some role playing with that and use that as a teaching tool, maybe in schools or outside of our extracurricular programs that hopefully we'll be able to start once we start to go live and in person with our meetings and gatherings. So those sorts of things I think are needed very much so now, since we've kind of gotten away from some of the basics that many of us have grown up with.
Oh, a shame.
But it is so much needed, so much. Well, I hear people say knowledge is power, but education is the key. And we are walking teachers every single day because we see so much of so many things that could be corrected. And you kind of ask yourself, how did we get here? It's because we know, Sister Tanaya, I know you're like a little baby to me. You're so sweet. But I'm just going back when I think about my parents or our parents and our grandparents and watching how things were. And a lot of times people will say, the good old days. But respect was so key. Respect was huge when it came to grandparents, our parents, our mother parents. And I'm hearing, I drive, but I hear that on the bus, it is just ridiculous, I hear.
Yes, it is.
I hear that it's just ridiculous. And then 2 summers ago, I was downtown and I had a chance, I had to get a bus or something. I think Clyde had the car or something. I literally got off the bus. The kids was so terrible. They didn't care about grandparents, and they have these seats in the front for people who are accessible. The seniors are supposed to sit up there. Are you kidding me? It's almost out of control. So we just got a lot of work to do, and it's just unfortunate. But we got to keep going. Of course, every chance we get, every time, every moment we can person we touch. So we just got to keep the fight, just like anything else. You always got to keep fighting, even though that ugly head pops up all over. And you're right, Clyde, the media. I saw something in one of our classes that we had in one of our programs. And we were talking about, I forget what class that was, when we were talking about youth, and we gave a list, and we said parents, media, schools. In other words, we were talking about the levels of influence. Mm-hmm. And it seemed like the parenting used to be up here somewhere, and somehow media and peer pressure, something's flipped, and all that's here, and the parenting kind of got down here somewhere.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, and then when you reach out in your parenting, there's so many things against the parenting now. The law, well, you can't speak loud, you can't touch them, you can't, with the parenting part. So you're just really left at a lot of things starting the children out really, really, really early, because it's just once they get to a certain level where they start listening to this person and that person. I had a little boy tell his little friend, his grandfather kind of got on him, about something he was doing outside, and he told his little friends, you can, they were like 6 and 7, you can tell the police if your grandfather, if he, and the grandfather used to keep a little belt, because he was like, I'm telling you, because he old school. Do you know these little kids went to the corner and told the police, my grandfather, he whooped him. They came and got the grandfather, handcuffed the grandfather. Now, can you imagine the little boy seeing this?
Oh.
He's seeing his grandfather, he went around the corner and he got out and all that. But the point, just to see that happen, I was like, what is going on?
Yeah. No,
we just have a lot of work to do, and we just have to stay focused and stay diligent every step of the way. That's going to be our line. As far as your question about us being on the pub and out in the public, back to what I said, we got to show something on a positive scale, because Tyler Perry, he done took off.
Sister Georgia, you said something a minute ago that I want to touch on. I want to ask a question about a statement you said. You said education was key. And it brought me to a question that I want to ask you and get your opinion on, both of you guys, Brother Clyde and Sister Georgia. Pertaining to minding your Black-owned business, should Black people be concerned with CRT, critical race theory? Or what's your opinion on that?
Well, I think we definitely have to teach that to our people, and so that they understand a gestation of this 400 years, but before that as well, and so that they understand that we've come from greatness, and hey, we invented all of this stuff. So white folks, if they don't get it, I can't really say that we're would need to impose that on them, but they should have that information. They should have that information. I mean, if you're going to try and whitewash the stuff, which is what they're trying to do, and say, oh no, we don't want to have that guilt on the little white kids. It's the truth. That's history.
Mm-hmm. So are we too concerned to what white people are teaching us, our children, instead of us taking that job on ourselves? Does that add to our argument that about CRT, that we're not educating our children ourselves and we leaving that job up to other people?
I think we do tend to take some of the lazy routes, I guess, in probably the biggest portion of our population. I mean, clearly there are some families that are teaching this, or they have made sure that they're going through some extracurricular activities where they're getting us coming to UNIA meetings, etc. But for the most part, I don't think that the better proportion is receiving that information.
Right.
So it is up to us to make sure that we are able to impart that information on to our young people and not so young people.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And I want to say, absolutely, but see, again, getting back to media, just from what you know, what I know, and Clyde know, we know families that gets it and doing everything. We hear excellence all the time about our children. We hear excellence all the time in our race, excellence all the time around us. But these things don't get the media attention like the negative part does. So the media, they paint us a certain way out there on a huge scale. You don't hear about the young Black boy that's got the highest IQ and is studying this and that. Just this week, there was something on the news about a young
Providence St. Mel, a perfect score on the ACT. That was good stuff.
You'll hear that maybe one time and then that's it. But somebody acting out, wilding out, stole something, you'll hear it all week,
all day.
So we're doing it. It's not being put out there the way it should. Like getting back to the negative is out there in a big scale, in the movies, even the TV commercials.
Yeah,
I mean they look, two men kissing now, and that's just that's like watching a Cheerios commercial now. I mean, so it's out there. So I would say with the critical race theory, it's here. So we know it's going to go forward. I mean, we might be for it or against it. We know that's going to go forward. They're teaching the I can't even get it out of my mouth. The LGBTQ, that's out there. They're teaching that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Well, I want to interject. I think it's one big part that we're missing here. The fact that all of this propaganda, what we see in the media, what's taught in school, what's represented on advertisement is intentional, you know, and the breakdown of the Black family has been an intentional goal throughout the years. So when we acknowledge that these things are put in place to break down the family and the view of the family, then we could see the importance of highlighting the positive. Now, I know that in my younger days, it was always taught that you keep family business in the home and it don't go outside those walls. That's what I was taught, and it seemed like it worked well because generations survived, even though it was a little dirt in the family, but the children never knew of it, and no one ever glorified it. So that's a large part of it. But when the public, when our people realize that it's intentional that we see TV shows like Love and Hip Hop or whatever with the cookie lady is out there, and it only shows negative relationships, and this is what our children are seeing, then we can really explain to our children that they're showing us this or showing them this to make them feel a certain way or think that's how society is supposed to be. So we have to acknowledge that these things are intentional and be intentional in our actions when we're showing our relationships and friendships and how we deal with family in the Black community. That's a large piece.
Shay point.
Very well said, sis.
that was very well said. Very well said. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. So we just keep that strength. Keep that strength going. So because we know that we have a foundation of strong Black people that's doing good things, positive things. We all know that it exists. But when, like you say, getting back to the media, it's not presented on a large enough scale as all the negative images. The bottom line.
So we all agree that being overconsumed with white media is not minding your own Black business. It's like going against minding your own Black business. Is that what we're saying?
I agree. Yes.
It is going against. Yes. It is going against minding our own Black business. So that's why it makes our job so to the point where we have to be so diligent, because we know that that's what's happening there. So we just have to stay on the course, because every single day when you turn that thing on, that's what you're going to see. So we just got to be stronger and stronger everywhere we go. And the young people, we got a tall hill to climb to keep, like you say, to keep it perpetuated, because that's a strong, powerful thing there. That television and the music, and it's coming from all angles. So we have to be really, really diligent. So minding our own Black business means that we're gonna have to just keep our head and ears to the close by our family and our children and everybody that we love, and that's to try to make us stronger in our journey with our race. And so everything that I do, it seems like just almost everything you do, you're thinking about the race, because they can take that one thing. Oh, that's how they are, So you really, really, really that minding your own Black business. It's a tall order. So we really have to stay on the course with that.
I wanted to mention one thing. Media here in the U.S. is not just something that gets internalized by our people, but also on continental Africans, and also into the hearts and minds of those that are throughout the diaspora. So they see this as being, this must be the norm. This is how they do in the U.S. So let's try to emulate that. So that's affecting them as well. So we need to try and make sure that we have, again, that other side of the coin. These are things that we should be doing. It's not just about Rolls Royce and a 10,000 square foot house. It's not about that. It's about what are you doing for us collectively.
Mm-hmm. Now, this program that you have tonight is extremely positive. Something like this is what we need a lot of and more often, because this is minding our own Black business, and we need a lot of people hearing it, a lot of people on the case, trying to keep making things better for us.
Indeed.
And Brother Class said something earlier also about like doing skits and putting together like pieces of entertainment that we could put out on social media to suggest a particular action or a particular dialogue to get dialogue started. So I think all of that pertains to media. If that's one of the number one sources of attack that the white media has against us, we have to figure out a way how to counterattack it with our own media.
Mm-hmm. Ashay. And just to interject about oversharing and our business, our Black business and our Black relationships, just being too open for consumption. Being a Garveyite, Dr. Bobby Wright said that, and Dr. Amos Wilson both said that the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey was a supreme psychologist, and that propaganda, he knew that propaganda was a war, right, being waged on Black people. And he said it does more to destroying the Black race than anything that ever was created, propaganda. So one of the things that I wanted to say about Garvey was that him knowing that propaganda did more to harm the Black race than anything man has made. So the UNIA countered that, with the oversharing of excellence, the oversharing of racial pride, the oversharing of racial uplift, the oversharing of Black people being excellent no matter where they were. So Sister Georgia was so right when she said earlier that the one negative has to have 10 positives, because that's exactly what the Garveyites did in the 1920s, is that there was always, he said, always over-dramatized racial improvement. Always. And I just wanted to add that to the discussion today.
Thank you.
That is wonderful. You are so right. So we're on one accord here, that's for sure.
I remember one of our elders here in Chicago, Dr. Webb Evans, used to say that same thing. Brother Clyde, you got to go out and talk all this stuff up we're doing, because people don't see it otherwise, and it gets overshadowed by the other media. So basically saying exactly what Garvey espoused. So I can appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Right. And,
I have an observation that I want your opinion on, Brother Clyde and Sister Georgia. When I look into like my family dynamic with my grandparents, my grandfather was in World War II, so they were a part of the World War II generation, and it seemed like they were more selflessly at leaving something for their children. Like even like they grew up in segregation and everything, so they were able to leave something for their children. But then my mom, them in the civil rights generation, it seemed like they squandered it all away with like just wanting them to be accepted and partying and everything. Mm-hmm. Could you tell me, when do you think we stop minding our own black business? Because it seemed like my grandparents mind their own black business, but my mother and them kind of stepped away from that.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's a great topic.
It's a great topic.
I look at it from the lens of business and succession planning. We have far too many, as you say, the previous generation worked all their life to build up certain businesses, might have employed, 10, 50, 100 people, and the next generation said, no, thank you, I don't want that. And they go to work, 9 to 5, and layoff time comes around, and they're the first out the door, where they had something that was already built that they could have continued and expounded on. So we're looking into some of that. When it actually broke down, that is an excellent question. I think when so many opportunities avail themselves to us and our previous generation, we might have gotten away from, you still have to focus on your family, your children, and making sure they are firmly grounded, and you don't have them getting raised up by watching television or by the public school system. Mm-hmm. There's a lot more to it than that. That's not parenting. I mean, yes, you want to make sure they go to school and get those basics, but there's so much more to it. And that's, I think, where we have missed the boat. Mm-hmm. So it becomes, like I said, an endless chase for the new thing, early adopters in technology, and you got to have this $2,000 phone. For what? What are you doing? Unless you're working it and this is making some money for you, or letting you take classes, getting some additional certifications, what have you. What do you need that for? Right. What do you need that for? But yet, the media says you need to have this. Then all your worth is wrapped up in what you have consumed. And when we buy into that stuff, we're losing. They want us to be malleable and basically do whatever they say. So it's up to us to mind our own business and say, no. Here are the important things. Be nice to have some of those other accoutrements, but that's not important. That is not important.
I'm listening to you, Brother Clyde. I'm thinking about families who their parents and grandparents had gone on and left beautiful homes, left money, left things that they could have maybe reinvested and built upon, big insurance policies, or whatever could help move that next generation up. And then I'm thinking in my terms of, again, getting back to the media, showing the guys with the cars and the jewelry and I'm just looking at images that people have just sold off everything and got rid of it and squandered it. And Nothing was invested.
Lifetime to build up, and it's gone in a couple of years.
It's gone, and then nothing was invested.
Right.
And it's we you say we want our kids to go further than us, and then it's like we have not really made the strides. Now wait a minute, again, that's the negative. Now I'm sure there are some positives out there where people took it, they were educated about it, someone showed them, and then they moved on up, because that's how we've built those legacies. So those are out there. But these are the negative ones that there's so many of them that we see that just...
That's why you gotta have a firm grounding in Garveyism. Because if you're just out there and now you got a few dollars, you don't know what to do with it. You're not thinking about anybody else but yourself. Yes. And so you have really no real good context in which to handle yourself. And you go through 5 or 6 marriages, whatever the case might be.
That was something that we just saw recently. Remember, they showed you all these millionaire. They were athletes and some business people, but they just showed them. It was something in the media, but it was on I think a magazine cover or something. And the coverage said, there are billions of dollars here, but nobody owned.
No banks. No. Right. Exactly. Yeah. I remember seeing that. Right.
So it's
no manufacturing plant, no banks, no
nothing. And these are people that's
grocery stores.
Yeah. So the answer is still out there somewhere. I mean,
go ahead, brother.
Honestly, I think we focus too much on symptoms instead of the actual illness. If you have a cold, you may focus on the runny nose, but that doesn't solve the virus. That doesn't kill the virus. Mm-hmm. The problem we have is we're focusing on the media and what's coming out of the media. What we should be focusing on is those who sell their soul for those negative images. If nobody sells their soul, there is no negative image of us in the media. We don't get seen fighting on social media. We don't get music that is destroying us. We don't get reality TV that's showing negative images of relationships or what they should be. We don't get shows that show us in the worst light. If we stop selling ourselves to those who don't care about us. See, as this being solution-based radio, I think we need to focus on the solution to stop the whole problem instead of just covering an ill. If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's why Garvey said what he said, Brother Anthony. And so I love what you just said, because, Garvey had broke that down in the philosophies and opinions. And when he said poverty is a crime, because it causes so many of us to sell out. Right. And then when earlier we was talking about succession planning and leaving something for the next generation to sustain itself, when we don't have nothing left for the next generation to sustain itself, we will continue to see the selling out of our people. So I think the solution is in thinking about how to succession plan the right way. Brother Clyde mentioned that earlier, how to set that next generation up the right way, thinking 2-3 generations ahead, if at all possible. Feel free to chime in, other Garveyites.
I want to make a mention of what Brother Clyde just mentioned about that showing of those millionaires and that caption of all these billions being presented in this one room. I actually saw that numerous times all throughout social media, and they were showing all of these entertainers and athletes. And Brother Anthony just made a point in saying that, that image that you saw of these supposed millionaires that have all of these combined billions of dollars, they're controlled and owned by our enemies, the opposition. Whereas there was a podcast recently of a former NBA player named J.R. Smith who used to play with LeBron James, and he actually propositioned the idea of other NBA players formulating their own leagues or starting up their own black-owned banks and things like that, so they can have not only residual income but actually produce something within their own communities after they get out of the league. Now you look at this brother's no longer in the league, because when these brothers start having this type of race first type of thinking, what does these white-owned corporations, what does these corporations do? They ostracize them. My question,
I like Craig Hodges with the Bulls.
How do we get in line with these brothers and sisters who have this type of thinking, who do not get the publicity, who do not get the press, who are actually doing something that, we have these black doctors, lawyers, entertainers who have some form of knowledge of self, who are in the know. How do we, as not only as Garveyites but as race first oriented people, how do we get them on board and changing the narrative of getting them to come along with the narrative that we're trying to present to our people?
We have to bring them in. Absolutely. I can remember having a few conversations with Dr. Conrad Worrell on that point. And he said he'd been working with him. He tried to get into some of the groups and had some success with it. But it's got to be an ongoing, deliberate process to include them on these philosophies. We do have a number of people that have moved from generation to generation and have expounded on the previous generation's accomplishments in business. I can recall hearing Melody Cooper Spann, who owns WVON, and how her father amassed radio stations basically from a real small town in Mississippi. I'd have been, I think there's a HBCU there, if I recall, going to a couple of conferences. But and then she was groomed from a very young person to look at the business, as well as just making sure that she had her education tight as well, so that she would be ready and able to hold on to it and expand on it. So I think there are many of those stories that we do have, but every time I see a business go out of business and not have some succession in mind, I think that we just need to do a better job of working with those people who have started them, and make sure that we get somebody in place to help continue to build on that success.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're going to have every other culture in our neighborhoods, like we see now, buying up all the commercial storefronts. You think about 47th Street here in Chicago. I'm not sure how far and wide the podcast goes out, but there's Chinese to own most of those commercial buildings that they rent out. And so they're able to move their product through them a lot easier. Imagine that we have that connection and we get groups like from the Ndinkra village in Ghana or some of the folks in Liberia with their garment district, to have a place where they can move their product. So that's all tied into it.
I want to piggyback off of that, Brother Clyde, because I had an idea that I wanted to share with the UNIA, and I want to reach out to New Era Chicago to form some kind of coalition where, instead of just going out demonstrating and marching down the street, why not target a neighborhood or a particular store that's ran by non-blacks in a black neighborhood, and target that store to freeze them out and keep that building, and replace it with with someone who lives in that community, instead of that's just an idea of mine. What do you guys think about that?
I think that would be very effective. I mean, you think how, look, in Chinatown, I don't think you can start a business there. You know, a person of color they wouldn't let that happen. And if you did, you probably would get the big freeze out.
Yeah.
You know, they wouldn't be
had
supporting.
some demonstrations or with some situations where we have some have been froze out. But there's so many vacant places out there too that can be started up as well. Unless the campaign would be just to move them out. We move one out and then maybe start a business. Okay, so we made that statement. But it's got to go way much further than that, whether we're going to do after we do that, take that and build. But that would make a great statement, though, for sure.
We have seen a few of those, Brother Alton, in beauty supplies. And I think that's a very big economic engine. You have associations like BOPSA, Black-Owned Beauty Supply Association, and they try to help with that. Because right now, what happens is you want to stock your store, and they'll freeze you out, and you can't get everything that people want. So it's important that we, as you said, have a coalition to make sure that anybody that supplants that foreign business in the neighborhood, that they're going to have every opportunity to be successful. So you're not walking in there and most of their shelves are bare. They got one or two products instead of the 15 by category that you'd see in some of the big places.
Yeah. So because sometimes the elders have always said, okay, if you freeze them out or you stop purchasing items from them, then what are you going to replace it with? So they always say, make sure you have another business ready to replace that business because people in that community still need, they still need essentials. Yeah. I wanted to say too about the succession planning. In my opinion, I like something that I saw recently done by Dr. Boyce Watkins. He has the Black Business School here and online, and he's a native of Chicago. And one of the things that I like that he did was he was realistic when it came to his succession planning, and he was transparent enough to share that with Black people. As we all know, being B1 is a marketable way to say race first, right? Saying B1 is just more of a marketable term. So, and being in Race First, he sat down and looked at his family, and he told, Black people, he said, look, family, we have to do better at succession planning so that my Black school can stay alive well when I'm gone. He said, and one of the things he did, which was key, is that he looked at his children and he looked at his nieces and nephews, and he said, you know what? They're not going to be the ones that carry forward the Black Business School. It may be somebody else who understands my legacy better, who is Black and race first in their thinking, who I may have to set up on my board of directors. But it may not be my children, right? Sometimes it skips generations. Your grandkids may have that fire that you have, that race first mentality. But your immediate family may not have the race first mentality. So he set it up where his grandchildren, will have the Black Business School. And right now his board of directors has on it people who care sincerely about keeping the legacy of the Black Business School alive. So it's something to think about.
That's great. That's great. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. So
I have another question. Sister Tanaya mentioned B1 is the same as Race First. It's just the newer generation, they come up with new sayings. In the B1, there's this thing called foundational Black Americans, that their that's American-born blacks that can trace their ancestry back to slavery is self-identifying. But online, there's this conversation that's held in the open where everybody could come and hear between African people. Us over here and Africans on the continent, they're having like a discussion, and it's getting heated sometimes. Could you weigh in on that? I mean, I know that's going against mine and your, that's publicizing your dirty laundry so everybody can see it instead of going to private forums to discuss, to iron out your differences.
Yeah. My understanding is that discussion that came out of reparations discussion, the African descendants of slaves versus continental Africans. And there was some very heated discussion about it. I mean, there were accusations thrown. I mean, it got very public and very dirty. And I didn't appreciate, that level of dissent from our own ranks. And so anybody from the outside looking at it would say, see, they can't get together on a basic terminology and who should get what. So I do understand where you might not want to be as public, that there could have been a more internalized discussion about that. I think in that case, one group was trying to get, more notice and recognition than some of the older groups like Cobra and other reparations groups. And like you said, it did really look bad if you looked at it and well, wait a minute, aren't they all black folks? Why is there an issue about whether or not you were a descendant of a slave versus, like, being a descendant of a slave was a badge of honor. It kind of gave more power than they needed also. I mean, that was another aspect of that. They're quick to say, I'm a descendant of slave, but, we don't really know. In a lot of cases, I mean, they could have been indigenous here and just came through generations. They could have been, again, continental Africans, but it should not matter, in my opinion.
So you're saying it shouldn't matter, like, far as like the Black Americans over here self-identifying as a separate.
You've often heard the term divide and conquer. So anytime they can put a divide between us, whether or not you're biracial or you're educated, non-educated, old, young, LGBTQ. So again, that's their job, is to try and divide us up.
Yeah.
And I think we fall right into that trap far too many times.
Yeah, and I want to ask too, another poignant question is that anybody can respond to it, is that what is privacy? And I think we should challenge that. What is privacy nowadays? And I'm asking that because it's kind of like a twofold question. What is privacy? And do Black people value moving in silence anymore? Right? Because I think that when we let go of some of our Black traditions, we lost a lot of privacy. We lost a lot of our privacy. A lot of things got accomplished when we had village meetings. If something got out of control in the community, in African society, there was a village meeting, and they dealt with it at the village meeting and remedied it there. Right.
We didn't need a press conference, right?
Right. And Nelson Mandela said that you never learn how to be a good listener. A good person until you really learn how to be a good listener because his father used to go to the village meetings and he would be the last person to speak. And so a lot of times that circle of elders got a chance to touch on it first, and he was last because he was the youngest. But I'm just saying that what is privacy nowadays when everything is so out there and exposed, and it seems like when we lost traditions, we lost privacy. That's just my opinion. Anybody can chime in on that.
Well, Sister Tanaya, I think your point is very on point about us losing our privacy, because now it seems like people don't even seek privacy. We want the word to get out, want people to see, because the word transparency is so huge. We need to be transparent, and the world needs to know, and we want to be, so it's, and then when you do, say, come together and have some privacy, then you got the element within the group who's taking the information out. So there's work to be done in that area if we want to have some semblance of privacy. And, like even today, I don't know, because, propaganda is huge. And even now with this war thing going on, I got something in my phone where they're, and we don't know where this is coming from, if somebody started it and just have people sending it out, or is it coming from a certain source, or, that kind of stuff that happens. But someone sent that thing to say, if someone calls you and say, ask you, have you been vaccinated? If you answer the question, then your bank account is going to press 1. Your bank account is going to be accessed, and the ATMs are going to be shut down, and you need to, this stuff is just up and down. And as far as privacy, but it went on in more and more and more about just how much is known about our private worlds that we think is private, with our monies and the banks and things that you have that you think is private based on what we think privacy is.
Yeah, because it seems like Black people don't have no privacy anymore. That's
what it seems.
It seems that way.
We might be able to grab some. Somehow, but on a grand scale.
Now, I want to add to that, when we think about privacy, it being a Black issue, we have to sometimes separate and acknowledge what's a Black issue and what's maybe an American issue or what's a humanitarian issue. And the privacy right now is really a worldwide issue, due to some might say, just to make sure that we're censored, take away our privacy, take away our rights as human beings. So that is a global issue right now. However, I agree with Sister Tanaya, when we step back into those African-centered traditions, we could protect ourselves from a lot of the things that's coming into Babylon. You know what I'm saying? They said step out of Babylon. Do not do the things that they do. So if we acknowledge within our families to stay more within traditions, we automatically protect ourselves from these things that's coming to attack our privacy, to protect our divine rights and all of that. So that's even more reason to stay focused on what we're supposed to do outside of what everybody else doing. So the privacy issue is a worldwide, global thing, not just a Black thing. And we need to separate ourselves from that.
A shame. It's true. It's true what you're saying, Sister Precious. I appreciate the feedback. It just seems that when it comes to us, it's more of just think about, for example, what happened to our brother George Floyd, like how they zoomed in like a microscope on what was happening to him, and how it was just those are the kind of things, is what I'm saying is that, wow, you know, everything about us is a public lynching, you know, almost. So just, you know, saying that a lot of times, yeah, it's a global issue, but it's just for some reason a magnifying glass is on a lot of other things that we do. That's pretty much where I was going with that.
Mm-hmm. Well,
exactly. And even if it's not open, then they dig it up and find out. They go way back to your childhood.
Yeah,
I agree. But due to the fact that we're not in control of the mass media, we can do the smallest thing. We can hit our toe, and then they're gonna say, "Oh my God, this person did that. They were drunk. You know." So just because this is what's said, this is what's put out there, that doesn't mean that this is actually how it happened or how extreme it was. Right. So a lot of that is not just the fact of what we put out there. It's actually how it's viewed and how, you know, they make it exciting. So some of those things are not in our hands. Only thing that we can do is try to control our own narrative as much as possible.
Ashe. I want to end this question about moving in silence before we move on, is that, and I know, Brother Austin, you probably going to take a break, but I just want to say the second part to that question about moving in silence is that number one, it's part of our ancient teachings. A lot of things got accomplished when we met in huddles, when we met in village meetings, when we met in nature, right? And in our homes, when we were displaced here, in the Americas, when we, like Sister Precious said earlier, what goes on in this house, stay in this house, you know, right? And so sometimes I think we need to bring back the Black manifesto of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, right? And Black culture anymore. Sometimes I think we need a 21st century Black manifesto all over again. But in moving in silence, our ancestors got a lot accomplished. Harriet Tubman said she could have freed more if they had known that they were slaves. You know, Haiti, they did that amongst themselves. A lot of things came because we wasn't, you know, what Mother Mary say, don't telegraph your punches. So I think Black people need to get back to valuing our moves. Our moves need to be somewhat on a, you know, power moves need to be somewhat behind scenes, you know?
I think that's why we started this podcast, this Race First podcast, Black media solution based. And if we don't add to the conversation, then we really is left to the wayside. Because when I look at Pan-Africanism from a social media standpoint, and like my children and the younger kids, and even being a Pan-African and looking at our organization, when I joined, I looked at an organization that was kind of crumbling. And then when I talk to Pan-Africanism, when I say crumbling, I mean like the buildings and you know, it was like the youth that was coming was like the children of the members and everything. So it's like, and then when I talk to Pan-Africans, they seem to not want to hear the younger people and their ideas if it doesn't pertain to Pan-Africanism or how they see it. They don't want to join the conversation. So as Garveyites, I think we have a responsibility to join the conversation and add what we see, add our opinion to it or add our ideology to it. So the youth have an option. They could go to, let's say, it's another thing called the Black media, where the youth is getting a lot of information from. And so if they're the only ones that's feeding information and we don't have anything to input in the conversation, that's the only thing the youth is going to get.
Well, I want to touch back on something Sister Precious said. She was speaking about the media and the power of the media. I believe that we subconsciously give the media more power than it actually has. again, the media is a symptom of the illness. And I believe we give it more power than it has. It does not have total power of controlling us or even our way of thinking. I'll give you a perfect example. The vaccination, the vax. It was pushed by every media outlet, whether it be social media, whether it be the mass media, whether it be cable news or whatever. Yet, less than 60% of the people got the vaccination. Because people still will make up their own minds if given the opportunity. But if we say, hey, the mass media has all the power, we've already been defeated. We have to stand strong in our own will and our own minds to negate being, I guess you say, screwed in the mind by the media. The media is just a tool. That's it. We have tools as well. Anything they can put out, we can put out on YouTube or Facebook or Zoom or wherever. Our enemies desire to make so many outlets, end up giving us outlets. So the mass media has actually diluted itself and doesn't have as much power as it once did. But we keep giving it power by saying that it does have this much power. If you tell me I'm a king, I'm going to start thinking I'm a king. And you're going to start believing I'm a king. If you look at me as a regular person, I'm going to believe I'm a regular person and not as powerful as everybody else. We need to kill the ideal that the media has so much power with us.
Well, I partially agree with you when we talk about the self-thinkers, the ones that think for themselves. A large amount of people did get the vaccination, and a large amount did not just because they felt like, hey, I don't want to get it or I don't trust it. They were also influenced. Now, maybe, I want to say maybe 2001, 2002, I took a few semesters in journalism, and I left that field due to the fact of what they were teaching. They were teaching us how to manipulate words and manipulate stories to bring people in, to make it more exciting and to kind of sway them unknowingly, So we have to realize that when we talk about the media, we have psychologists on the board. We have all type of MDs and individuals that goes in psychosis. They spend hours and hours and hours and hours on these things, on top of which they have the finances to back it, on top of which they also have the money to set up illusions in front of you with billboards and advertisements and clothes and things like that. So until we have that power and that money to do the same thing, we cannot say that they don't have that much power. We have to acknowledge the power that they have, not saying that they can brainwash everyone, because of course they can't. That's why we're sitting here on this panel right now. But when we talk about the average person can be swayed very easily, extremely easily. So we have to think about those people and how we're going to protect those people.
Shay, this is so correct, Queen.
And Precious, I agree with you wholeheartedly, because it's also a numbers game. If you just bombard, you get the people that get it and say, no, we know who we are and what. But the masses, it's a lot of people who are not thinking. They take this information and run with it and pass it along, and so it's powerful, like you said, and then the numbers. You just keep. You're gonna get a huge number of that'll just believe it just because they keep hearing it.
Followers and subscribers.
Yeah.
You're right about the numbers. And that's why Garveyism is so important. And it's always going to be relevant in Black life, because one of the things Garvey said was we are compelled. Once you know, you are compelled by duty to go among the unthinking masses and make them think. And so I'm so happy that we have this podcast, because this is an alternative to what we're talking about, capturing the minds of our people, going among the unthinking masses. You're so right, Sister Precious. You're so right about the average person. And closing on my thought is that I remember reading Dr. Amos Wilson, and he said we have to remember that, majority of our people, and he was a Black psychologist and a Garveyite, said that the majority of our people are possessed and under some kind of possession of white supremacy, and meaning that some of the things they do is just automatic and is built into them. And when you think about what a possession really means, it's just people moving on autopilot and not really thinking about their next thought. And so you're right, Sister Precious. They spend time, resources, and money into getting into the psycho of the individuals that they want to influence. Ashe. Ashe. Brother Abdullah, you have anything to add?
Well, in regards to propaganda, we have to come to the conclusion that we're dealing with solution oriented. Can you hear me? Well, in regards of propaganda, we have to come to the conclusion that if we're going to be solution oriented based, we have to look at ourselves as propaganda. Myself, for example, with the music that I do, that is propaganda. For example, today I put out a music video called Problems in Society. I had two 20-year-old young brothers comment on that and said, this is music that we need. Whereas all of these other artists are just rapping just for the sake of it. You have artists such as myself who really rap not only from the heart, but is much needed. Not only just that in a propaganda base, but how you appear and how you dress. I give you another example. Brother Anthony, I have never seen this brother not appear in public without his dashiki, without his dreads, and wearing it proudly as an African. I've noticed it recently when I'm out and about with my red, black, and green kufi on, or my UNIA mask, or my UNIA, or anything of my attire that has red, black, and green. That opens up the discussion for other Black people who are unaware or don't have that sense of knowledge of what's going on. It opens the conversation. Also with our youth, our children. My son, for example, he plays basketball. Despite the fact that he plays for a team that's mostly, the other, he listens to my advice and my wisdom as well. He lost 7-8 straight games, and then today I said, son, have your coach talk to me, utilize this, and this, you're going to win. They utilized every single solution-oriented option that I put out there, and his team won, and he was very proud of that, to the point he was telling his teammates, why don't y'all say Giannis Antetokounmpo? And I'm like, son, do you know what that name means? He's like, yeah, it's African. How does he know that? He knows that because as his father, I have put those models of Garveyism in him since a baby. So this is part of propaganda that we can utilize not only past media. We understand that the mainstream media is going to have a threshold on the majority of our people, but what we can do, individually, at least as Garveyites, is that we can utilize propaganda for our advantage by each one teach one type of philosophy or approach. And this opens up the conversation. And then once you can open up the conversation to the people, you will be surprised how many people will actually want to learn more about who they are and then move away from the mainstream type of propaganda that's put out there in a negative light.
I want to add to that. I remember taking my child out with New Era Chicago to clean up neighborhoods. And we rolled up on one neighborhood without New Era Chicago, and this neighborhood was messed up. And the first thing she said was, man, Black Power need to come out here and clean up. And she didn't know about New Era. She just knew it was Black Power because we could go down the street, Black Power, and then we pick up the trash. So all she related in her mind was like, wow, Black Power need to come over here and do some work. So, propaganda does work with our children.
It does. I love that, Brother Alton. I love that you mentioned that about your daughter. And I want to add to the positive note is that about our children. And thank you, Brother Abdullah, for bringing up your son. My son, for example, you're so right that we have to be ourselves propaganda and look at ourselves as a walking propaganda on a daily basis, because my son, even bringing him and exposing him to Black Power, to self-reliance, to Race First, to the teachings of Garvey, and bringing him around the UNIA, New Era Chicago, and Black people in general, just having him, exposing him to that. It was a point in time in his life where he liked white girls. And I made it clear to him in my own life that, number one, I told him it's unacceptable and you better not bring a white girl in my house. I told him that when he was young, that she can't come in my house. That will not be acceptable, because I knew that was the mind that I had control over. And then throughout the years, now that he's 17, and I told him this when he was 7 years old, and it must have stuck with him because he's 17 now, and he said to me, Mom, I don't know what I was thinking, because Black women are beautiful and I don't want anything else. So it does work. And plus, I demonstrate that in my life as well, and my dating habits and things like that. So yeah, you do have to think about ourselves as walking propaganda. Sister Georgia and Brother Clyde, we're gonna let you guys go with one last question. The whirlwind, speaking that to you all today, it was an honor, it was a pleasure, but we can't let you go without giving us the whirlwind story. How did you all get caught up in the whirlwind? How did you become Garveyites and then become Garveyite couples?
I think my journey began maybe 13 years ago. I can remember being on travel in Haiti and then Ghana, and I was traveling with some of the professors from Atlanta University and Morehouse and my older brother. And so wherever we were going, I was seeing Garveyites. We were sitting down and reasoning with some Garveyites. And to get back to Chicago, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Sister Mary pulled me aside and we introduced each other. I think Baba Senghor Baye made some overtures as well to say, look, we think you'd be good working in Chicago with the UNIA. I think at that point, we did a few things as related to Kwanzaa, and kind of got ourselves out there selling books and getting in tune to what was going on in some of the communities, meeting people like Brother Shaka, Brother Cam, Sax Preacher, and a few others. And they had some pretty firm grounding in Garveyism as well. So from that point, I think I was sat down by Mama Mary and our ancestor, Sister Brenda Dunn Clayton. They said, you will be the president. Now, I don't think it went that far initially. I think what I did was I put on a few programs, spearheaded as a program director, brought in a few professors to a couple of venues. And after that, they pulled me aside and said, we want you to be president of Division 429. And it's been a very fulfilling journey. I think that I wish I would have gotten in earlier, because the youth when I had it. I mean, that would have been a great thing to have an understanding, a much better understanding of the world around, as opposed to just staying in my little silo. I mean, yeah, it has its advantages. I mean, you spend more time at home, etc. But I think having a broader based view certainly will make sure you're serving the right purposes.
Okay. Sister Georgia.
To jump right on into how I became a Garveyite, but I would say early on in my life, I should be considered the eldest of my 7 sisters and brothers. And I was always the one that seemed to kind of lead the pack there, you know. And through my high school years coming up, I was in the student council and always, you know, one of the people that was trying to galvanize students to do things. And then we would, whenever there was a protest or something, you know, going on in that area. But I met Paimon Rami and Masekwa back in those days. And I joined up with them in some of their, I guess I want to say, community activism type of things, although they were in drum and theater and so was I. So I was kind of all over the place with all this energy I had, but I was always on the edge of just people coming together, and then with the turmoil and things that were going on in the 70s, you know, and then with Dr. King. And then I remember with a young man that was in the breadbasket choir. I was very kind of taken with that because I always kind of gravitated with somebody that had the love of Black people and trying to see us propel. And so moving past some years, because, you know, I get grandchildren now and so forth and so on. But when I met Brother Clyde, I kind of like, who is this brother, you know? And I was at a stage of my life where I wasn't playing no games and I wasn't thinking about no relationships, none. So I figured he'd be a good guy to be a buddy with. So we buddied for about 10 years. But I knew that he was someone to reckon with. But when I found out about him and the Garveyism, now that was an eye-opener because I gravitated to him in his strength and his love for Black people and the way he was, the type of person he was. And so, but I still had a lot of things going on with my family and this, that, and so forth.
But wait a minute, now you had Pan-Africans meeting at your house all the time before that.
No,
before my time.
I knew.
She knows everybody.
Well, I just knew it. I knew a lot of people. The spectrum is broad, that's for sure. So long story short, I went to a couple of meetings with Clyde. This is probably around 2010, 11. I think it was 2011. And then went to one of them that I was very, very impressed with. And I was learning, I think Victor, our vice president, was giving us a presentation on Africa. And then they were talking about Marcus Garvey. And I just started meeting some Garveyites. And then, of course, I met Mary. I started kind of hanging out with them. And I loved the energy and the knowledge. And everything was just kind of coming together slowly. Because I was definitely taking this relationship slowly. And then there was a lady in the group. Her name was Dr. Carol
Wynn.
Carol Wynn. I believe she was at Northwestern University. But I took a liking to this lady. She was a Garveyite. And you know, with that relationship that I was building with her, she just died. And I was feeling some kind of way about that because I you know, kind of bonded with her. And then so I'm already with Clyde and I'm liking the direction he's going. And I like this lady who died, and I met Mary. So I was just in this little family of Garveyites. And it just seemed the natural progression to just make that leap and actually become a dues-paying Garveyite. And Mary kind of did me similar to Clyde. She said, Mary Boda, she said, well, we need a program director. So I fit right into that mode because they were, at all the meetings, they would have cupcakes and cookies. And I started cooking dinners. And so Clyde, with his persona, when he became president, and bringing people to the meetings, and with me cooking those meals, people started coming, and it was almost like a church, because we watched meetings go from 6, 7, 8 people to 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. And then, of course, the programs, the women programs, the different programs that we had. And the programs were awesome. We always had programs that were meaningful to us as Black people. We like to celebrate. But when we come together, the speakers and the people that we would bring together. And then Marua, his organization, I'm talking about the Vision 401, Vision 401, when we would team up, we were unstoppable. So we just, it was just a natural progression. So that's how I really joined the UNIA along with Clyde. So I just kind of joined right on in. So that's kind of my natural progression there. So I'm happy that I made that leap, and we're going strong. And of course, the rest is history with the pandemic that came up and kind of got us all squared away. But we found a way.
Ashe.
Yes.
Ashe. Thank you guys so much.
Oh, wait, I'm not finished. Oh, and then last June, Clyde proposed to me. And then we got married. And so here we are.
Congratulations.
The icing on the cake.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I love that. And that's the positive aspect of the Black relationships that we want to display, that we want our people to see. Thank you so much, Brother Clyde and Sister Georgia Banks, for being our honored guests and speakers this evening on the Race First Radio with the Garveyites. We appreciate you, we love you, we adore you, and just thank you for sacrificing time out to come and give this good, Black, wholesome message. The Race First, we love you and hope to see you again soon on another episode.
Before y'all go, I do have one question for Brother Clyde. As a man of industry, do you think that distribution is the biggest impediment to Black business?
I think it's just one challenge. The business itself has to be broken up into several parts. Distribution is just one of them. You got to do marketing. You got to do your sales. You got to do manufacturing, if that's what you're doing. We grow pineapples as an example, and just getting the stuff to the boat is not a problem. Getting the stuff across the ocean to whatever markets is not a problem. It's just the real challenge was just growing enough to feed the demand. So it can be varied. There are some impediments to getting on the shelves to, say, a Walmart. If they want 1 billion widgets and you can only produce a couple 100,000 per month, then there's going to be an issue. Amazon is now taking over a lot of the distribution, same way as Walmart, same way I guess Sears and Montgomery Ward's did back in the day. They pretty much had a corner on the distribution with their catalog. So it'll be remains to be seen what's next on the horizon. I think if we look in terms of micro distribution, I think Georgia touched on it earlier. I think that is a way to grow. You think about some of the brothers who started selling CDs out of the back of their cars. Okay, that was a good way. And you think about it, they keep almost 100% of their CD sales, as opposed to getting a nickel or a dime off of each CD. So it actually did get things, pay the bills, and get things going, get an audience. And I think we can do some of the same thing. Speaking of succession planning, that might be something that we look at. Who is doing, there's a brother named Rochelu Dennis who had his shea butter business, and that was his main claim to fame. He had his mother's shea butter ingredients in that formula. And he was able to go all over, not only this country, but other countries as well. Now he has just recently purchased Madam C.J. Walker's mansion in New York. And that is going to be set up for women entrepreneurs and that incubator. So, I mean, we can see how it's done. We have done it. I'm sure we invented that too. So anything man can do, man has done, man can do. Mm-hmm. And so I wouldn't think that is a major impediment. And I think we can handle that.
Well, I ask that because, like you said, we own black farms, we own black stores, we own, record labels and music, but we don't own the distribution of records. There's like 6 companies in the country that do distribution. We aren't owners of any of them. Mm-hmm. We don't own any shipping lines. So if something was to come about, say we did have a revolution, we could be cut off with distribution because we don't control it at all. That's why I asked, was it one of the main issues with, main impediments, with business, because we're always at the mercy of our enemy because we don't control distribution at all.
Good, great point. I mean, the other thing though is that you can't necessarily have your vertical integration all at once. I mean, first you get one piece, and then you continue to move it down the value chain. So that distribution is one part of it, processing is another part of it. That's one part, and we certainly should at some point shore that up so that we can control that. Garvey understood that with the Black Star and Steamship line. He understood that, hey, people are buying and selling goods all the time. We need to be in the middle of it and control some of that distribution. So, again, that certainly is something we should be looking at. We can do it community by community initially, but look at states, cities, countries, and roll it out that way.
Thank you, Brother Clyde.
Thank you.
And Race First. Thank you, guys. Brother Clyde and Sister Georgia.
We appreciate the opportunity. Great job. When is the next podcast going to be coming up?
In 2 weeks. We air in every 2 weeks. We air. Okay. We don't air live. This is pre-recorded and we post it. We do the taping on Saturday nights and we post it Sundays. And on that note, we want to ask everybody to subscribe to our YouTube channel at UNIA Division 401 TV. Division is short, spelled D-I-V. That's UNIA DIV 401 TV. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. And we're going to have some announcements by Brother Abdullah.
As far as our future events in the UNIA Division 401 here in Chicago, on March 27th, we will have our fundraiser event. It will be the Betty and Coretta movie and discussion. We will have that on Sunday, March 27th from 6 to 9 p.m. It will be on Zoom. We're asking for a $7 donation. And if you're going to donate through Cash App, our Cash App information is $UNIA DIV 401.
Cool. Do you guys mind giving a quick recap on the last fundraiser that we did with the Serena and Venus Williams about their father?
Well, we recently just had our fundraiser on King Richard, where we showed the movie and then had a African village discussion after the movie, which means everyone who attended the fundraising event, everyone had an opportunity to give their piece on what they thought about the movie, as well as the importance of fatherhood amongst African people. And that was recently held on the 27th of February.
What were some of the highlights that came out of the discussion?
Some of the highlights from what I gathered was how very resilient Richard was in pursuing his daughters to stay on their quest to be not only good tennis players, but great and excellent tennis players. His everlasting quest to maintain that sense of family values. Not only that, but the major thing I got out of the movie was his persistence of valuing education as opposed to being manipulated by corporate sponsors who wanted to give massive amounts of money to the Williams sisters. But Richard's stance was, these are kids, let them enjoy their youth, but at the same time develop their game. But education is at the forefront of what he wanted to achieve in regards to the success of his daughters.
Okay, so on that note, we're gonna get ready to close out. We normally close out with a solution-based commentary. So since Brother Clyde and Sister Georgia is still on the line, do you guys want to add a solution-based statement about today's topic on minding your Black-owned business?
Go ahead, man.
Well, the solution can begin with the collective thought that we all talked about together, and that is the each one teach one. Every breath we take and every step we take, just being our own propagandists, because the word propaganders. Yeah, creating our own propaganda, and together, as a unit and as individuals. So I think the work will just encompass and reaching people, because the problem is vast, but we just keep going because you never know who you're going to teach, and then you tell two, they tell two, they tell two, they tell two. So I think it's just a yearning and a growing to keep reaching out and keep reaching and teaching.
Okay.
From our perspective, I just want to make sure that we emphasize being deliberate in our actions. Could be how we spend our money, or what we spend our time with, and just be consistent with it.
Okay. Well, thank you for tuning in to Race First Radio with the Garveyites. This is solution-based Black media. Sister Tanaya or Brother Anthony, do you guys have any closing words?
One closing statement is in regards to solutions. I always have to say this because I'm a diehard Garveyite, and that Garveyism is the solution to all of the ills of Black people. So I think that if we as Black people continue, like Sister Georgia said, to work towards the aims and objects of the UNIA, and use Garveyism as a working theory, I think we'll be fine. If, like Garvey said, if Black people rose up today, a lot of our problems will be solved overnight. Race first.
Race first. So on that note, we're gonna close out.
Race first, 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 race first. I'm screaming race first, brothers form a coalition. Protectors and providers, earn your belt in position. And tell my sisters out there, you're not my competition. Our enemy, one is divided is opposition. I'm taking care of home first. The melanin the creator blessed us with has value in its own worth. The most beautiful resources are Black women. So when you disrespect them, yes, I get offended. We need to give our children honest wisdom, understanding, and reparations for slavery, we are demanding. Look to the future, begin a positive outcome. Forget being niggas, we need to raise more Malcolms. Encourage our women that the beauty is natural. The bond between the brother and sister is compatible. I am race first, cause I love being Black with the original man, and that's an actual fact. Race first, 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 race first. In the spirit of Marcus Garvey, one God, one aim, and one destiny. We're trying to live heavily. Power to the people that's meant for us especially. Support black businesses, utilize your specialty. I love my brothers and sisters, there's no confusion. You want equality on the ship is revolution. Look at our flag, let me explain what it means. In the essence of God, which is the supreme being. The red is for the blood of which our ancestors shed, for us to be free and also moving ahead. The black is for the skin we possess as melanin. As God's chosen people, just look at the evidence. The green is for the land in which our people reside. All over the planet, which includes our Kelbulan. I am race first, and there is no looking back. Because I love my people, and that's the actual fact. Race first, 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 race first. One God, one aim, one destiny, one love. 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 Race first, 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 race first.